The place is Seymour Narrows, a narrow passage between Vancouver Island and the mainland of British Columbia. A narrow passage where the tidal surge creates swirling eddies. Seymour Narrows, every vessel wishing to travel along the east coast of the island must sail through. The year is 1958. Ripple Rock lies in the middle of the channel just under the surface, only 3 meters under the surface at low tide. Ripple Rock is the most significant impediment to navigation on the west coast of Canada. For the safety of sailors, Ripple Rock must go. A marvelous feat of engineering allows hard rock miners to burrow under the Narrows from the adjacent Maud Island. They riddle Ripple Rock with tunnels and stuff them with 1,375 tons of the explosive called Nitromex 2H. The event, the largest intentional non-nuclear explosion ever experienced on the planet. On April the 5th, 1958, Ripple Rock ceased to be a hazard to navigation. One less difficulty on a coast which is renowned for its hazardous waters and navigational difficulties. As decreed by an Act of Parliament, every foreign ship plying British Columbian coastal waters must engage the services of a local marine pilot.
Yes, that's right, Captain.
With over 15,000 kilometers of coastline, British Columbia is the largest pilotage area in the world. To efficiently service such a large area, it has been necessary to establish pilot boarding stations along the coast. Pilots live in Vancouver, Victoria, Prince Rupert, and Nanaimo, and are dispatched from these centers to service the ships in their area. A marine pilot climbs aboard a vessel while it is still at sea, up a swinging rope ladder and up to the bridge. The pilot is aboard because he has intimate knowledge of local waters. Armed with a captain's license and many years' experience, trained extensively to handle ships of any tonnage, the marine pilot is uniquely qualified to bring the ship safely to its destination.
I'll pull her out a bit to make it easy. Here, I'll bring it up here.
As long as ships have put to sea, they have been taking on pilots to guide them into port or through dangerous waters. The early explorers took on natives from shore villages to guide them through inland waterways. Ships' logs down through time have marked a pilot's presence on board with the distinctive entry to master's orders and pilot's advice.
Pull ahead, please. Pull ahead.
Midship.
Lorraine, idle on, please.
Buffeted by the Pacific Ocean, lashed by winds and high seas, soaked in drenching rain and often shrouded in fog, the west coast of Canada is a wild and isolated area. British Columbia also offers extensive inland waterways, intricate passages, dotted with myriads of islands where the waters are calm and safe. As long as you know the passage through and where the rocks are, and understand the local tide patterns and how the prevailing wind will affect the tide and current. So, ships take on a pilot who knows these things and fly the red and white flag to signal pilot on board.
Hello. Starboard side, alongside at Ben Wharf. You bet. Hello. Good, thanks. Pilot. Bill Monroe, Coast Pilot.
Today, the Port of Vancouver is the largest port in Canada and the second largest port on the west coast of the Americas, north or south. Lumber, jet fuel, tallow, petrochemicals, grain, crude oil, cars, pulp and paper, coal, acetone, ketone, sulfur, containers, ethanol. The list of products passing through our ports is endless. The wealth of our nation flows to markets all over the world, and their goods come back to us in trade. Add in the volume of the 30 or so smaller ports dotted along the coastline, and British Columbia accounts for over half the maritime trade of Canada, one of the richest nations in the world. And this trade means ships. Around 3,000 ships a year enter the port of Vancouver alone. Thousands of ships, all protected by the expertise of BC Coast pilots.
Good afternoon, Captain. How are you?
Captain, we can let go all the lines forward and let go all the lines out.
Oh, okay.
All lines let go.
Okay. 船头船尾对岸前。
Shipping goods by sea is considered environmentally sound because ship travel is fuel efficient for tonnage carried and causes very little pollution, as long as the cargoes remain inside the ships. Marine pilots are our protection against a serious mishap on our marine highways.
The role that pilots play in protecting the waterways of our country, Canada, and around the world is probably one of the less known professions, but one that is very, very important. The role that pilotage plays is assuring a safe and efficient movement of goods, and waterborne goods are probably 3/4 of the way goods move around the world. And I think the future will mean that pilots will become not only known, but more and more involved in all the safety aspects of moving cargo and ships.
Good afternoon, traffic. Preparing to depart Crofton, bound for an Nanaimo change.
Canadian transportation regulations stipulate that all ships must carry updated charts for the waters in which they sail, and almost all do. Global positioning systems and electronic charts have made navigation even more pinpoint accurate. But nothing can substitute for the extensive local knowledge of a marine pilot. A chart can show where the rocks are and the shape of the coastline, but it is the pilot who knows how the wind blowing from the northwest will affect the tide, when it is on the ebb in winter at a given spot, and that knowledge can have a profound effect on the safety and movement of a ship.
Yeah, and the Harkin, that's got her up there now. Thanks very much for helping out.
Roger. Good evening there, Bob.
Yeah, good evening. Half ahead.
These entrepreneurial captains are all partners in the company, BC-Coast-Pilots Limited. This company has a contractual relationship with the Pacific Pilotage Authority, a federal crown corporation, whose mandate is to supply safe and efficient pilotage services to foreign ships plying the waters of the west coast of Canada. The revenue generated by the marine pilots for their services ensures that the Pacific Pilotage Authority remains financially self-sufficient rather than costing taxpayers money. A rare feat when you consider that a fleet of pilot boats must be crewed and maintained, and even larger, faster, more powerful boats must be built and commissioned.
One of the more difficult aspects of piloting is getting the pilot on board a ship, because this is done between ships that are in movement, oftentimes in darkness, in sea conditions that are not always easy. So the means of getting aboard the ships, the principal means, of course, is the pilot boat. And a magnificent boat like the one we will inaugurate today is a state-of-the-art, will mean that lives will be saved.
May God bless her and all who sail on her.
Pilots reach the ships through the services of pilot boats. These powerful vessels take the pilots out to meet the ships. The pilot boats must be powerful enough to cope with the prevailing waters of the area in which they operate. They must be fast and maneuverable, so that they can come alongside to afford the pilot a stable platform to begin his climb. The captain and crew of the pilot boats are trained extensively in the skills required to make the pilot's job easier. The pilot's life is in their hands. On a bright sunny day, the transfer is like climbing a cliff on a rope ladder. But when the storms rage and the seas are high, stepping onto the moving rope ladder from a heaving deck of a small boat takes cool nerves and adroit footwork. The pilot boat crews are rough water mariners. When a ship radios for a pilot, they don't ask the ship's captain to return on a sunny day. The pilot goes out to the vessel in the rain, in storms, and in the pitch-black night. The pilot boat crew are there to assist him.
About 9 miles out now.
Ships radio ahead, giving their estimated time of arrival at a pilotage station.
We'll be able to red buoy and we'll talk to you when we get closer.
The pilots work in strict rotation and receive their job assignments through the Pacific Pilotage Authority, a federal crown corporation. The pilot then reports to the pilot boat, which takes him out to the vessel. The ship turns to create a lee or sheltered side for the pilot. A large ship will cut the wind sufficiently so that it becomes calmer on the lee side, but the ship does not stop, and in the sea and swell continues to pitch and roll, as does the pilot boat. A rope ladder is lowered over the side, and the pilot begins to climb to the deck. Once on the ladder, the pilot boat drops back a little so that should the pilot fall, he will not hit the deck. But should he fall, the crew have only moments to find and recover him. The pilot climbs in the latest of floater jackets, but the waters of British Columbia are frigid, and so hypothermia is a constant danger, as are the propellers of the ship, which are very near and very deadly.